Welcome to the OddsBreakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 43 of 2019. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can tweet me at OBKiev or tweet us at the OddsBreakers. My friends, college football is upon us. It is here, week 1B, and I cannot wait. A lot of people called last week, week 0. I think that's kind of dumb. I don't think it makes sense. It's just basically 2 weeks of college football, 1 week with a little tease of a couple games, and then obviously the next week kind of starts it. But to be honest with you, there's no real huge games anyways. I'm going to be over at the Westgate Superbook this weekend, watching the games, watching my Badgers on Friday. I'll be around all weekend, so swing by and say what's up. Would love to see you. Would love to hear from you. And that's where I shall be. Well, at least for Saturday during the first games, and who knows where my day is going to take me. But anyways, want to talk a little bit about a new podcast that we have, OddsBreakers NASCAR. Pretty sweet deal. Mr. Paul Napier's doing a great job giving out winners. So we had to make our own NASCAR-only podcast. It is called Playing the Odds NASCAR Style, an Oval Experience. And Paul's just been killing it this year. You're losing money if you're not taking his plays. He's giving them out free. I think he's had only one losing week of minimum of 3 picks each week this whole summer. That's how good Paul's doing. Who cares if you even like NASCAR? This guy's been money. If you'd like to contribute to the show or to the website, we have bloggers and people that write up picks, make a better name for yourself, get some podcasting experience. Please visit us at theoddsbreakers.com and contact us. You can contact us via Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. This episode is being sponsored by betonline.ag for a 50% sign-up bonus and getting on the site that gives out pretty much the first lines of the week, usually Sunday around 2 or 3 o'clock for college, and NFL's out immediately after the games. Make sure you check out the OddsBreakers/BetOnline for a 50% bonus. Terms and conditions apply. If you'd like to help us out and sponsor our website and podcast, we'd love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com and click shop, and you can get our pages in premium plays before the line moves. Up 21 units last year in college, over 56%. If nothing else, we have free plays. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a Free Picks newsletter subscriber. I got to tell you, after all this time in the offseason, ever since, well, pretty much January. I believe we made our first play in February, and I'll announce that next week. It was a premium play. We studied hard, as usual, for the college football season. Lots of work was put into it, and that work usually pays off every single year. What we pretty much want out of our preparation for these teams is...
But they are who we thought they were.
That's right. We want them to be...
But they are who we thought they were.
We want the teams to be who they thought they were, or who we thought they were, because that's going to make our first 2 or 3 weeks pretty profitable. And we started out hot last year and the year before. Hopefully it's going to happen this year. We have a lot of premium plays out, gave out some free plays, and we have some more good stuff for you this week. Let's get right into it. And by the way, we are following the same agenda as we did last year. On Monday, it's going to be a recap. We're going to go over some games that were misleading final scores. We will go over letdown spots coming up, look ahead spots coming up. And then obviously we'll have D Nasty on to do your fantasy for the whole week, who you're going to pick up, sleepers, busts, etc., etc. And then we'll have our show Thursday morning airing, going over the sharp money report as well as my plays. And sometimes we're going to have guests, sometimes not. We don't want to overdo guests, you know. I want to focus on everything I've studied up for the week and have hopefully another profitable season. So that's kind of the agenda of the show. Check out the website because we post many articles on sharp line movement as well as betting spots. It's kind of an easy little read. I don't like doing too many words. I kind of like doing it so you're able to read it without investing a ton of time. Just get the main points across. That's how I like to handicap. Some handicaps that I read are literally like 2 pages long, and it's just mostly a bunch of fluff. Why the hell do I want to read 2 pages? I just want a paragraph or two to get the point across. Let's get into these games, shall we? Let's start out with UCLA versus Cincinnati. And Cincinnati is a 2.5 point favorite. Wow, does that beg you to take Cincinnati at home? I mean, this line kind of says that UCLA is slightly better on a neutral site. I am not so sure about that. But the truth is that why do you want to bet against Chip Kelly? It's just too many questions. Cincinnati was a lot of smoke and mirrors last year, but they were still good and they returned a ton of production. UCLA kind of improved towards the end last year, but they still have their work cut out for them. I have this game closer to a pick'em personally for this game. It feels like a trap game, and something I don't want to mess with here. I'm going to stay away, but I'm telling you right now, if I had a lean, it would be towards UCLA. I did like how they beat USC at the end of the year last year. They started scoring some more points, and then they lost to Stanford 42-49. But they returned some decent production. You know, 61% on offense, 81% on defense. These recruits should be a lot better than Cincinnati's. You know, I'll tell you right now, if I was going to make a play, it'd probably be on UCLA. It kind of tells me that they're the right side, being at -2.5. But I'm high on Cincinnati too, so I can't do it. And this game's going to be played on Thursday, which is tonight. So you're probably getting the podcast early in Thursday morning or mid-morning, possibly early afternoon. So that's literally the first game. Then you have a couple other games. You got Robert Morris at Buffalo. And Buffalo is favored by 46.5 points. Okay. And I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know much about FCS Robert Morris. But what I do know is Buffalo lost pretty much everybody. And if Robert Morris scores 1 touchdown, they should be able to cover that spread. So I'm going to lean to Robert Morris on this. But didn't really put a ton of research on this one. Apparently, the bookies and the sports books put more research than I have, for sure. Not really any other huge games. Minnesota plays South Dakota State, and this line moved from 12.5 to 14.5 quickly. South Dakota State's always been a tough FCS team. They were 10-3 last year. I lean to Minnesota. I did not make a play on them. I don't like how it went past 14.5 and all of a sudden slowed down a little bit. But looks like South Dakota State lost their quarterback to graduation, Taryn Christian. They lost their running back, Isaac Wallace. They returned their receivers, it looks like. Couple linemen graduated, but they return at least 3 of them. None of their defensive line graduated. A few linebackers did. So, I'd rank them a little bit above average in returning production at South Dakota State. So the fact that they changed out their quarterback definitely gives me a strong lean to Minnesota. Maybe I'll make a small personal play on the Gophers since I'm so high on the Gophers for Thursday night. Why don't we start with our play for Friday? Okay, and it's going to shock you guys. We're playing the Wisconsin versus South Florida game. It's plus 12-ish. Seen it at plus 11.5, plus 12.5. Over under is 59.5. So here's the thing, and I thought about this long and hard. This spread is strange. Okay, it starts at like 11, 10.5, 11. It gets pushed right away, early up to maybe a couple weeks back up to 13.5, and now it's back down to 12, 12.5. Okay. This 12.5, how it's stuck here so long, tells me that the bookmakers don't know, and a lot of the bettors don't know, if the Badgers are going to destroy this team by a lot or just win by maybe a touchdown. Okay. It's the 12.5 that makes me think touchdown-ish, win or beat them by a lot, because 12.5, you're moving past the 10 here. It just tells me a lot of uncertainty. It tells me that Wisconsin is probably the right side here. And when you kind of dig deep, you might see that. Remember last year with South Florida with Charlie Strong, how they were fake news?
You are fake news.
So the sharp players, saw a lot of discrepancies in their wins. A lot of turnovers, the ball bounced their way, a lot of misleading final scores. Well, that worked out well for the sharper bettors, because the last 6 games, South Florida lost by 10 points or more. Okay? I don't see really much of a change here now that they have to play a very disrespected Wisconsin Badgers team. Let's not forget, Wisconsin was very injured last year, and they had a lot of internal problems with their team. Hornibrook not getting along with his offensive line, et cetera, et cetera. And let's also not forget that Wisconsin is a running machine. It feeds right into USF's weakness. South Florida allows 5.1 yards per rush in a weaker conference, okay? They also lost 45% of their production on defense. Wisconsin averaged 6.22 yards per rush last year with the nation's best running back, Jonathan Taylor. Okay? I think there's a better chance that Wisconsin wins this game by 17 than less by 12.5. I think this could be a blowout. I don't think South Florida's got the firepower here. Okay? Jack Cohn won the starting job against 4 to 5-star stud Graham Mertz. He's had the team on his back this whole offseason. They get Quintez Cephas back, their receivers, all the receivers. They get back all their injuries, like Garrett Rand last year, Isaiah Loudermilk. This, I think, has the makings of the blowout. I just don't see South Florida stopping them. Wisconsin wins by at least 17 points. Take the Badgers 2 stars, and this is my premium shared play.
You better lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
Next game we can talk about is Purdue at Nevada. This has kind of been bouncing back around the 11 range too. This is one of those games that the odds makers don't know what to do with either. Purdue lost a ton of production. They're starting Elijah Sindelar, and he's been at Purdue for a long time. He was supposed to be the starter last year, and they took him out for David Blow, and David Blow ended up being the better quarterback. But what I hate about Purdue is that when it comes to returning production, I mean, they pretty much lost everybody. You know, they rank 124th in returning offense. That must just mean that they have Rondale Moore. That's about it. And they rank 72% in returning defense, which isn't too bad. But their defense wasn't that good last year, was it? I mean, when we watched Purdue, you know, they got boat raced by a lot of teams. Last year, they allowed 30 points per game, 6 yards per play. You know, Iowa put up 36 against them. Minnesota 41, Wisconsin 47 in an overtime game. Auburn, remember that game? 14-63 in that bowl game. When everyone's saying that Auburn's not necessarily going to be as motivated. No, they were pretty motivated. But, you know, Purdue, like I said, really doesn't return that much. It's hard to be on them, but I can't. It's also really hard for me to fade them because I just love their coach, Jeff Brom, so much. You know, yeah. You know, I just don't know what we're going to get out of Sindelar this year. You know, they do have their starting left tackle returning, their starting right tackle, redshirt sophomore center. You know, Jared Sparks was this another starting receiver next to Rondale Moore. A couple sophomore running backs. You just don't know. And their defense still has some decent players on it. So the thing is will they be able to exploit that 3-3-5 defense that Nevada runs? Say, I think Nevada runs a type of defense that can kind of slow down the fast play. You know, it doesn't over pursue. You don't fall into mistakes from the spread as much because you have so much secondary kind of having an eye on everything. Now, the way to exploit a 3-3-5 defense is just to pound the ball. But Nevada, you know, like I said, they return some decent production. All their wide receivers, they return a decent amount of defense. But they do have a new quarterback there in Christian Solano. And you know, let's just see what Jay Norvell does. Right now, I lean to Nevada plus 11, but I'm not going to take it. I know some sharp people that have. Next game, let's talk a little bit about Colorado State versus Colorado. This is Colorado minus 13.5. Mel Tucker, coach. I've already mentioned that I do not believe in him. But Colorado State is so bad, and they've been so bad. You know, some of the people say that they're going to be the worst team in the Mountain West. Okay, Mike Bobo, this is probably going to be his last year. He's 24-27. They returned Colin Hill, their quarterback. They returned just their fullback, Adam Prentice, and a couple offensive linemen, a little bit of defense. Yeah, Colorado returns their quarterback, Steven Montez, and they return all their wide receivers, 4 out of 5 offensive line, and a really good amount of defense. You know, I wonder where they rank in returning production. I think it's got to be pretty high. Checking right now. 71% on offense, 64% on defense, 43 overall. It's not too bad. But is it enough to get over this rivalry game of 13.5 points? It's a lean for me. I'm not a huge Mel Tucker fan. Colorado minus 13.5 is just a lean. Let's move into Saturday's couple games on Saturday that we're going to talk about. Akron versus Illinois. This spread jumped up. A lot of money came in on Illinois. They're a faster-paced team on offense. Had a ton of youngsters last year. Illinois, I hate to say this, but they could seriously surprise some people this year. You know, Lovie Smith, as you know, I've never been a big Lovie Smith guy. And, I think he really doesn't know what he's doing. But maybe he's finally found some coordinators there with Rod Smith on offense. You know, they have a quarterback named Matt Robinson that should be pretty good. Reggie Corbin, you know, he's definitely a good running back. He's returning Ricky Smalling, a nice wide receiver there. They return 4 of their 5 offensive line. They return a ton of defense. You know, their last game they fought at Northwestern pretty hard, only lost by 8 points. So, you know, maybe this team finally gets their head out of their ass, but the sharper money seems to be on Illinois here. So it's definitely a lean to me, Illinois minus 18. Let's look at Duke versus Alabama for Saturday's slate. Some money came in a little bit on Duke, and some money came in the under. I don't know. I think Alabama should be able to put up a lot of points. Duke lost their quarterback, obviously, to the draft. The Giants got him, Jones, and you saw how good he's been playing. So, you know, how's Duke going to be? Well, I love Cutcliffe. He's a great coach. Supposedly the quarterback whisperer. So maybe that means that Quentin Harris is going to be really good. But this team also lost all their skill positions at wide receiver, tight end. They lost their left tackle. Yeah, you know, Duke. This is Alabama here. And I know Alabama had some devastating news yesterday. They lost Dylan Moses with an ACL injury. But what I wonder is how devastating is it for an Alabama team that recruits 4- and 5-star guys at a very consistent basis? This could be just next guy up for them. So, don't have a big opinion on this game. Next game we're going to talk about is Virginia Tech at Boston College. This line's interesting, and it keeps going in Virginia Tech's direction. It's at minus 5.5. I would hate to bet against Boston College on their first game of the year at College Station, especially if it's a conference game. I'm going to lean to Boston College here, but I didn't research these teams a ton this year. There's just kind of too many question marks for me. But I do want to say it looks a little bit strange. The home dog kind of looks nice there. So not understanding that line. South Carolina at North Carolina. This is at more minus 10.5 for South Carolina. I would still lean South Carolina's way here. Boise State versus Florida State. Florida State's a minus 4.5. Boise State lost, as you know, their quarterback, running backs, and wide receiver core. Florida State coming off a terrible year. Blackman and Hornibrook from Wisconsin, the transfer, obviously was battling it out, and everyone was saying it was a 50-50 quarterback competition, and Blackman won it out. So I expect Horny to transfer again before the 4th game so he can be eligible again. But I believe this Florida State team, I'm hearing whispers, they're pretty motivated here. That's the only side to look at in this game. Let's look at Virginia versus Pittsburgh. As you know, I have that over 7.5 total with Virginia. Pittsburgh plays great at home. They're kind of that run it, down your throat type team. I like what Pittsburgh did later in the year, last year. Okay. They ended up beating Virginia Tech, then at Wake Forest. And then it got hard. They had Miami, Clemson, and a bowl game against Stanford that they lost by a point. So I don't blame a ton, them losing those games. But one thing you can look at Pittsburgh is that they're 5.59 yards per run. They went to Virginia and beat them last year. They seem to know how to handle this team. So I'm not touching this one, but I will be paying a lot of attention because I hope the Cavaliers win this one to make that 7.5 a lot more easy sailing. Oregon versus Auburn. Ding, ding, ding. Well, this total is at 56 right now. And if you remember, we really liked the under in this, and we took it under 59. But I'll tell you right now, this is another play I'm giving you because I like it all the way down to 52.5. 52.5, that's 7 touchdowns and a field goal to get to 52. I think it's going to go under that. I mean, we can't forget that Auburn is a very defensive-oriented type team. They have a new quarterback this year that's probably going to be a little bit rusty, and I think they're going to be. I didn't notice yet. Are they starting that freshman? They're starting true freshman Bo Nix. It looks like, and he won it over another young kid, Joey Gatewood, who is a redshirt freshman, but obviously Jared Stidham got drafted by the Patriots. Maybe he's going to be their new Matt Castle or Jimmy G. So we'll see what happens to Jared Stidham there when Tom Brady decides to play till he's 50. But what I do know is I do not like taking anything over a game when a true freshman is starting for the first time on a defensive-oriented team. The Auburn Tigers averaged 70.2 plays per game last year. That ranks 81 out of 130 teams. And Oregon, that everyone still thinks for some reason that plays fast, they don't play that fast. They average 74 plays per game, ranking 49th in the country. This is way post Chip Kelly era. This is Mario Cristobal era, okay? Oregon's actually has somewhat of a defense. So I expect more of a grinded out type game. Oregon's got definitely a lot of talent there. They have a ton of returning production, and they have that super hard schedule. I mean, ridiculous schedule. Let's see if Justin Herbert can put up some yards. And he had a nice 29-8 touchdown to interception ratio. But I think this under is money, and that's why it went down from 59 to 56. And I still think it's too high. I mean, I wouldn't even buy back on this thing unless it got down to around 50. So that's my opinion on this game. And there's your other play. Yeah, that's, I mean, Fresno State's playing USC. Fresno State returns nobody. USC actually has a lot of new faces themselves. Northwestern versus Stanford is going to be a premium play there. Can't talk about that one. Michigan versus Middle Tennessee State. Michigan's, that spread went up a little bit. Iowa against Miami of Ohio. Iowa's 21.5. They're begging you to take Miami of Ohio. No one's going to do it. And then LSU in Georgia Southern. We already gave this play out. I think you know that. We took Georgia Southern plus 30. It's down to plus 27.5. So I like that sucker all the way down to 23, as you remember. Let's get into
the sharp side of the force.
The sharp side of the force is brought to you by uwager.lv. For a 50% sign-up bonus, please visit uwager. Use the promo code TheOddsBreakers. All right, let's get into the Sharp Money Report. And hopefully throughout the season, this will help you make your own decision on which side that you're going to play if you just need a little bit of extra help. Starting with, just to remind you, I usually, it's got to be at least a 20% difference between the number of tickets on a side, the percentage, and the percentage of money. It's usually got to be a 20% difference for me to call it sharp, or unless there's in different situations. Sometimes you get buyback, and I'll try to mention that as well. If for totals, it's got to be 30% difference. Texas State at Texas A&M is the first one. There is a 36% difference between the number of tickets and the amount of money, and it's on Texas State. I mean, Texas A&M, like we said before, is in a potential, look-ahead spot. Sharp money was on Rutgers hosting UMass, going from 11 to 11.5, but that value is gone now, I believe, going past 13 and 14. Nebraska, sharp money on them, hosting South Alabama. There's a 23% difference between the tickets and the amount of money, and it's really kind of dual action. That spread is all the way up to 36, but I'll tell you this, that's kind of where my power rating is, 36 points. Nebraska should be better than South Alabama. They're the third worst team, and I'm not touching that. I think Nebraska can put up a ton of points, but they also could be looking ahead a little bit to Colorado in a revenge spot, as we said last show. ECU, East Carolina versus NC State. Sharp money on East Carolina to plus 16.5. It was a 5-point line move. It went from like 22-ish, and that thing went down a lot. So I'm not going to touch it, but we'll see what NC State is. There's sharp money on Illinois hosting Akron from minus 15 to minus 18. And yeah, I already mentioned a little bit about Illinois. Nothing I can do there. I don't want to. I still don't trust Levy enough, but I wouldn't be shocked if Illinois beats Akron by a lot and I start kicking myself the next day. Sharp money on South Carolina, as you know, 7.5 to 10.5, 18% difference now, and I think that value is possibly gone. Sharp money on Northwestern at Stanford, plus 6.5. There's actually some dual action on Northwestern, 22% difference. And dual action means sharp and public. More percentage in tickets than 50. Actually, I usually do over 60 or 70% for dual action. Michigan, sharp money on them, hosting Middle Tennessee State University from minus 28 all the way to minus 34.5. That's a 6.5 line point move. I'm not touching it. 25% difference between tickets and money. Value's gone for the most part. Still slightly into Michigan. LA Tech going to Texas. Sharp money on LA Tech at 20.5, a 30% difference. Everyone's fading Texas, as you know, this year. New Mexico State. Sharp money on them going to Washington State University at plus 34.5 down to plus 31.5, a 20% difference. That's really interesting. I'll tell you this, Mike Leach certainly hurt a lot of people that faded him last year, didn't he? I think they were actually the best team against the spread, Washington State. So, I mean, don't exactly just dive right into this one. Sharp money on Louisville. How bad were they last year hosting Notre Dame at plus 20? It's kind of hovering there. 33% difference between ticket count and money. All right. Sharp totals. Utah versus BYU is actually over 47 to 48. Ugh. Not touching that over. Sharp money on UMass under, and they're playing Rutgers, went from 57 to 55. Dual action, 26% difference. Sharp money on Oklahoma State versus Oregon State under 72, a 36% difference between ticket total and sharp money. Dual action on Purdue at Nevada over 59. A lot of people expect a lot of scoring that game. Ugh, I lean that too. I definitely lean that over 59. Dual action on FAU at Ohio State over 63.5. Ohio State might just score that themselves. South Alabama versus Nebraska over from 63 to 66, a 36% difference between ticket total and money. Dual action on East Carolina versus NC State under from 57.5 down to 53.5. I think the value is kind of almost gone on that one. Dual action on Illinois hosting Akron over 61 from 58. Dual action, Toledo versus Kentucky over 62 from 58, a 36% difference. So they're saying that Kentucky doesn't have a defense and should be able to put up some points on a faster playing, powerful Toledo team. Indiana at Ball State over 60, a 46% difference. That's pretty big. A lot of people like the over there. Ole Miss versus Memphis under 68, a 47% difference. That's pretty large. So you're looking at Memphis, a team that plays fast, against Ole Miss that didn't have any defense last year, and people are playing under 68. What do they know that I don't? Dual action on Syracuse Liberty over 68. SMU is going to Arkansas State under 56 in a 54% difference. I disagree with that one too. Arkansas State's always been a team that puts up points. SMU can put up points. They play fast. Not touching that one. I don't know. I'd almost just bet the over on that one blindly. I'm going to have to look into that one a little bit more. Middle Tennessee State versus Michigan under 56, a 33% difference. Georgia versus Vanderbilt under 58, sharp money, a 36% difference. And New Mexico State versus Washington State under 64.5, a 45% difference. Sharp NFL. Dual action on Minnesota -3 at Buffalo. Also a 22% difference between that and the tickets. Sharp money on Jacksonville from -3 to -4.5. Hosting Atlanta is dual action. Jacksonville. Both these teams are 0-3. I think Atlanta's actually 0-4 now, but everyone's just fading the hell out of Atlanta. But Jacksonville doesn't look like a preseason team either. Dual action on Cleveland hosting Detroit with 98% of the money on Cleveland. Wow. Everybody's on Cleveland. Miami going to New Orleans. Sharp money on Miami +3.5, a 26% difference. Sean Payton's only 2-11 on game 4s in preseason. Okay. So that tells you a lot. Arizona going to Denver from +3 down to +2, a 31% difference. And then there's some sharp NFL totals, okay? Now, the books open them up super low, and I think there's a lot of these are just pure number grabs, just grabbing the above the number because the average is higher. Philadelphia versus New York, over 35 is a 46% difference. Atlanta versus Jacksonville over 32 is a 43% difference. New York Giants versus New England over 35, a 55% difference. So all this money came in on all these overs. KC versus Green Bay over 34.5, a 39% difference. Completely disagree with there. These teams play each other. Arizona at Denver over 33.5, a 37% difference. LA Chargers versus San Francisco under 33.5, a 46% difference. Value's gone there. Oakland versus Seattle over 33.5, a 54% difference. Like I said, I think a lot of these are just straight up number grabs. I don't want to bet any overs or too many overs, and at least in game 4 preseason personally. So just remember, a lot of sharp money is just people playing numbers. They don't even have to know a lot about the teams. Just people with systems that are at 53%, 54% every single year. It's not the way that I personally like to play. I do have one play for you in the NFL that I'm going to give out. And this play has a lot to do with home field advantage. Okay. Now, I'm looking at the Raiders at Seattle. The Raiders are going to play Peterman, which is a very good preseason quarterback the whole game. And obviously, You're going to see a lot of Geno Smith and some of the other guys over in Seattle. But the thing about this game is that both coaches really like to win in the preseason. And I think the home field advantage is going to definitely affect the game a little bit because it's Seattle, and even though it's preseason, there is still somewhat of a home field advantage there. I mean, as we know, Pete Carroll likes to win. He's 24-15, and John Gruden likes to win. He's 36-17. But if you also look at the game fours, both looking pretty good. John Gruden is 7-1 in game fours in the preseason, and Pete Carroll is 6-3. But I just think Seattle's a little bit better of a team. I think you still might see some Russell Wilson and just maybe for a drive or two. And I think that Oakland's defense is just so bad. And you saw that they should have lost to the Green Bay Packers last week. I gave out Oakland, and they did cover the spread there, and they actually won the game too last week. But I didn't think it was the greatest pick because Aaron Rodgers didn't even play that game. As a matter of fact, in Winnipeg, the field was so bad they made it an 80-yard field, and they decided not to play their starters when they were going to earlier, Green Bay. So I thought I got lucky there, and I think I'm just going to play up on that. I think Seattle wins. I took it at -2. I like it all the way up to -3. All right. Well, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed the picks. If you have any questions about any game this whole weekend, just tweet us at the OddsBreakers, and we'll see if we can help you. We'll definitely give you our lean. My friends, college football is here. Have a fantastic weekend. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe this podcast, and go get some winners.